Good morning. Oh, it's so good to see everybody. Hi, I'm Judy Neal, the founder of Edgewalkers International, and we welcome you today to our Edgewalker Café. This is August 29th, 2024, and today's program is focusing on demystifying artificial intelligence. And this is going to be a very open, interactive dialogue with our certified Edgewalker facilitator, Sal Celly, who is also the founder and CEO with his wife of MaximizeU. And MaximizeU, what's the URL, Sal? Life.
Maximize the letter U dot life. Yeah, I'll put it in the chat.
Thank you. So he'll be telling us more about that because MaximizeU is an AI-based off platform that is the home of our Edgewalker Academy that we're working on and will be offering you. And so we're excited to share a lot of this with you today. So I wanted to begin with a poem that I quoted in my latest book, which is Inspiring Workplace Spirituality. This is just a little book of collected essays over my many years of doing this workplace spirituality work. And this comes from the first essay titled Blessings. And the poem is by William Butler Yeats. My 50th year had come and gone. I sat a solitary man in a crowded London shop, an open book and empty cup on the marble tabletop. While on the shop and street, I gazed, my body of a sudden blazed. 20 minutes more or less. It seemed so great, my happiness, that I was blessed and that I could bless. And in this chapter, I quote Mother Mira because there's a quote from her in a William Harvey book that really changed my perspective on what it means to bless. And the phrase in this from Mother Mira is, you cannot transform that which you do not bless. So I'm going to ask you to take a moment of silence and just be with that phrase. You cannot transform that which you do not bless. So join me in a moment of silence. Thank you, everyone. Thank you, and welcome to those who've just joined us, where I'm going to turn the baton over to Sal Celly, who's a certified Edgewalker facilitator, and have him lead us in an exploration of demystifying artificial intelligence. So Sal, over to you.
Thank you, Judy, and good morning. Hello, everyone. I know we are on different time zones. Really happy and excited to be here. Appreciate you all jumping on. I really want to make this very interactive. As Judy said, I'm a certified Edgewalker, but I have been in the tech industry for over 30 years, and I am passionate about leveraging technology to positively impact human progress. And over the years, I've done that for many, many large organizations like Oracle, like Dell, and Infor and Informatica. And about 3.5 years ago, we felt it was time to do that for ourselves. So I partnered with my wife, and business partner, Laura, who's been an educator for many years, and we created MaximizeU.life, which is an AI-powered tech platform for institutions and individuals to maximize potential and transform. So, Judy, it was a very appropriate opening contemplation that you chose. You cannot transform what you cannot bless. So, thank you for that. So let's focus a little bit on this, right? AI, right? Is it hype? Is it reality? So I'm going to hopefully share some of my thoughts with you all about all of this. And I like to kind of start by, why is it called artificial intelligence, right? Because what do those two words mean? It's a combination of those two words. So there is definitely intelligence, but it is not human intelligence. It is intelligence that is driven by computing technology. And that's why it's called artificial, right? In many ways and many forms, it can be far more effective at doing certain tasks than human intelligence because you have the power of computational processing, right? But very important to recognize that it is never going to eliminate human intelligence. It is in its optimal form, it's going to supplement and make better human intelligence. And we'll drill into that shortly. But right at the outset, it's important for people to recognize that because there's so much talk about how artificial intelligence and generative AI, which is a subset of AI, is going to eliminate human jobs and make people redundant, and we're all going to be replaced by robots, and we're all going to be eliminated. That's not at all the case. Okay. If anything, it's a great time to be alive. It's a great time to be living and working and being an entrepreneur, because if we leverage AI and we leverage generative AI, we can make our lives and the lives of others so much more productive, so much more valuable, and more fulfilling and significant. So that's the promise of AI. Okay. Now, like any other technology, there need to be guardrails around it. There are major ethical, legal concerns with privacy and usability and security, which need to be in place to make it more meaningful and safe for.
Session, but I can leave it if John wants to talk now.
Okay, I think okay. Thank you, Judy. If you all have a question, please ask. I love questions, right? But I think somebody was maybe talking in the background. So what I was going to say is that I'm sure you've read about some of these terms being thrown about, right? Artificial intelligence, generative AI, responsible AI, conversational AI. So I'm going to kind of break down some of those things. Okay. So what I was saying is that guardrails need to be put in place to ensure that the AI is responsible, safe, and there's democratization of that technology, right? Because it's the same thing that happened when a new technology like smartphones was introduced, or when the internet came about, or when electricity came, or when the steam engine was first introduced, or when there was horses and carriages, right? So who does that? There's a role that government plays. There's a role that countries and nation states play. There's a role that academic institutions play. There's a role that corporations play. There's a role that societies play. And all of those folks combine and get together to create those guardrails to make sure that it is being done correctly and it is being positively implemented to minimize the downsides of it, right? You can never eliminate the risk, but you can minimize it and manage it better. And that's what's critical. So with that broad context, any questions about that before we delve deeper? Okay. All right. No questions? Okay. So just to put things in context, let's talk a little about the scale of AI, right? It's not a fad that is just hype. Just, as I was preparing for this conversation, I did some research. And by 2030, okay, we're in 2024 today. So in another 6 years, artificial intelligence will add $15.7 trillion to world GDP, okay? Increasing it by 14%. Now, people may say, oh, well, that's a lot, and it is. But that's what we are talking about, right? So it is a concrete phenomena that is going to significantly increase world GDP, gross domestic product. I'm not talking about just the US, because this is a technology that has global domain, and it's not restricted to any one particular country. So that's one thing, all right? Another interesting statistic is that every day, more than 1 billion, with a B, new words are being created by generative AI. And that is equivalent to additional million books being published a day. Okay. So that's a lot, right? When people ask me, okay, so Sal, what's the difference between, if you explain what artificial intelligence is, but what is the difference between generative AI and regular AI? Good question. So generative AI, as the name suggests, is focusing on creating new content and generating new information that did not exist before. Okay, and that's really important to know, because a lot of press is about generative AI, but it is a subset of AI. Think about it like this. Artificial intelligence is where we are leveraging patterns by looking at existing information to identify certain behaviors, whereas generative AI is creating new patterns and new information which will provide insight to people and businesses. So there's an important difference. So if you look at, what is the bedrock of all of this? For all of this to work, what is the critical factor that is going to be instrumental? Any guesses? Would anybody in the audience like to take a guess? There's no right or wrong. Actually, there is a right answer, but I'm curious. Any guesses? Yes, Peggy.
I'll say us, me, us.
Yes, absolutely. Human intelligence, humans. Yes. Yes, Alice.
I think the critical factor that I'm worried about is whether we will be able to maintain control of AI or not.
Yeah. Yes. And that's where the guardrails come in, and the legislation, and the ethical, social, legal, economic aspects of that come in. But really, if you think about it, the critical factor for all of this is data. the quality of the data, because artificial intelligence is operating on the data that is available. So if the data is of good quality, the output will be of good quality. If the data is bad and it is poor, then the intelligence that operates on that is going to give you information and insight that will not be of high quality. Yeah, Larry.
So a reaction to the data piece. I think that there's more to it than data. I think other things come into play. I think heart comes into play. I think authenticity comes into play. I think lived experience comes into play.
Absolutely.
I think early on, I wrote a piece called ChatGPT can't taste a peach. And I think there's something about felt experience, lived experience, not just data. So I just want to add that to the mix. And one other thing, I just want to put in a plug for not knowing. I want to put in a plug for not knowing that I think I heard a statement that it's going to make our lives more fulfilling. I think it's, for me, I can only speak for myself. I don't know that to be true. I think that's a possibility. And I want to put on the table the possibility that we don't know. And just like with social media, which comes with some positives and some non-positives, or we might call them negatives, I think we can sit in the space of not knowing with some of these. Maybe it will make some aspects of life more fulfilling, maybe it won't. But I just want to open to the possibility that we just don't know, and that's okay. And that's okay.
Yeah.
Anyway.
That's a great point, Larry, and thank you for bringing that up. I am not at all saying that we have all the answers. And I'm not saying that data is the only critical aspect. There are many factors that will make this live up to the promise of positively impacting human lives. It is a promise. It has not been fulfilled fully and completely, but there is hope. So that's one thing. Number two, you're absolutely right. There are many things that we will continue to find out as we continue on this journey, okay? Because it's relatively a very new, it's a new opportunity. It's, AI existed for a long time, but it's really gained in popularity after ChatGPT, which was introduced in 2023. 2022. So it's very new and we're still trying to figure all this out. But the promise is there, and there are certain things that it is already impacting. Peggy made a critical point here that humans and the role of human interpretation and emotion and empathy and leadership and the ability to understand nuanced behavior is a critical thing. And machines cannot replace that or do a better job on that than we can. However, there are certain things that they are doing very well. Okay, and I'll talk a little about that. But the other thing that comes up many times is, what are the business aspects of this? How are businesses leveraging AI? Right? Just yesterday, NVIDIA released its results, and NVIDIA is the company that manufactures chips that power all this computation for artificial intelligence to work. And of course, they did over $30 billion in the second quarter. The valuation of the company is over $3 trillion. So they're doing awesome, right? Because all this artificial intelligence and generative AI needs a lot of computational power to do all these things. And if you're manufacturing semiconductors and chips that enable that to happen, you're going to do really well, right? So if we talk about how are businesses leveraging this, right? It's important. Deloitte just studied and surveyed 2,620 global businesses on how are they really leveraging generative AI. 94% of businesses said that AI would boost their business in the next 5 years. Okay. 44% said that they use AI for cloud pricing optimization, and 41% for voice assistants, chatbots, and conversational AI. Now, that's something we all are familiar with, right? We've got Siri and Alexa, and, you know, if you're trying to have an issue. I was coming back from Atlanta yesterday, and my flight, I got a notification that my flight from Atlanta to Austin via Delta was delayed. And I got it on my screen and said, hey, do you want to look at a different flight? Okay, so we're familiar with these kind of things, which definitely make our life better, because now it's easy. I can quickly, you know, change my flight and do all that. But it doesn't replace a human involvement, right? So that's some of the things that businesses today are utilizing. The most common AI use cases in the workplace, right? Email spam filters. If you want to send out mass email today to an organization and target all their employees, it's not going to go through, because there are it can recognize what is spam and what is not. So it's going to block that content, okay? Chatbots for customer service questions. If you have a question with your, as far as your AT&T bill is concerned, or if you have a question about your banking, right? Invariably, when you're calling in, you're not talking to a human. It's either a voice response or it's an agent that is servicing your question. So those are some ways that businesses are leveraging AI to do a better job of that. And then, you know, 47% are harnessing AI tools in the form of digital personal assistants. Okay, so if you want to go on a vacation today, you can actually have an AI solution plan out your entire vacation within the budget that you have, within what you like to do as an activity, whether you're a mountain person or a beach person, and map out all of that for you. So these are things that individually we all are benefiting from. Of course, there are guardrails that have to go with that, right? So, okay, so this is all great. So where do we go from here, right? One of the key concerns people have, and it's a legitimate concern, is that are the downsides of AI going to exceed the potential upside? And one of the key areas is becoming redundant and losing jobs. Okay, so let me spend a minute on that. There are going to be some losses of jobs. Jobs that are very structured and have a lot of routine, repetitive tasks can be done better by AI than by a human. So some of those jobs are going to get eliminated. And yeah, Linda, you're right. Now there are pricing differences where if you want to speak to an actual live person, you have to pay more for that transaction. Because otherwise you keep in this constant loop of being transferred, and they don't get what you're saying. Maybe they don't understand your accent. Maybe the choices that you're being given, you know, you just want to talk to a live person. Well, if you want to talk to a live person, some companies are charging more for that. Now, believe it or not, some companies are also charging more depending on where that live person is going to be located. Okay, so a whole new revenue stream coming out. Do you want to talk to a person who's in the US, or are you open to talking to somebody that is overseas? It's a different conversation, but so yeah, so what I was going to say to you is that there's this concept of hallucination of AI models and bias that gets introduced into it, right? So important, because they don't, unless the AI model is trained and has context, it's going to generate results that are not going to be accurate. As an example, how do you differentiate between content that is actual real content versus content that has been created by AI? Valid question. And what if that AI content now becomes part of the content on which AI models are working? So it becomes this whole loop, and it's a beautiful analysis that was done where you took an actual photograph of 27 people, okay? And all those folks were different, and you could make out. You could make out based on their skin color, their facial expressions, their characteristics, etc., etc. Now, if you use that for Gen AI and you keep doing that over and over again, after about the fourth round, those differences start to diminish, because now the Gen AI is constantly working on the same model and it's becoming repetitive. And after a while, everybody looks exactly the same, okay, which is a scary thought. But again, this is my opinion, okay? I think there's a lot of opportunity with the technology, and I'll talk a little about how we have implemented it at MaximizeU. But it's still early days, and there have to be guardrails around it, okay? There are ethical concerns. There are important security and privacy issues. I'm sure you may have read that Pavlev, who was the founder of Telegram, got arrested in France because the platform, which was meant to be used for good, has now had a lot of illicit activities happening there. So as a result of that, they've been arrested. Now, the question is, can you hold the founder of a platform liable for what users use the platform for? Valid question, right? So just some things to think about. So, you know, I like to simplify things, right? And if I'm talking to somebody and I want to explain to them the importance of quality data and classifying the data correctly, I would use this analogy, right? If you have a $6,000, a 6,500 square feet home built on a 2-acre piece of land, and now you're relocating from that large home into a 2,000 square feet apartment in New York City, you need to do certain things to make the transition smooth, right? You don't pack all the stuff and suddenly go to the new home and then start figuring out what should I get rid of. You do an analysis and you figure out, obviously, certain things are not going to fit in that new apartment. So what are those things? In order to make a decision and a good move, you need to figure that out. And in order to do that, you have to first know what all you have. That's where the data comes in. That's why classifying the data is so critical. How many, as an example, how many beds do I have in my old home and how many beds do I need in my new home? Or how many utensils or cups? And how do you define a cup? Is a glass can be a cup, or, for taking this closer to a business, if a business wants to know who are their most profitable customers, how do you do that? Is the customer, are you referring to a local customer? Is it a global customer? Are you based it on profitable in terms of overall spend or cost or net profit? So all this is very, very important, right? So how you classify the data, how you calculate and how you define the data and the quality, etc., is key. So let me stop there for a minute and see, I've given you a broad overview of AI and Gen AI and what the promise is and what some of the important guardrails and protection aspects are there that are important. But any questions on that? Does this make sense? Is it too technical? Would you like me to drill it down a little more or share some of your feedback, please? Yeah, Judy.
I have a question because I read something interesting, and this is very helpful. Thank you. I appreciate the distinctions and definitions because I hear these words and usually don't know what they mean. I read about a person creating his own AI. He was a father who had a terminal illness, and so he taught, and I want to understand what it means to teach an AI something and what it is to have a personal AI. He taught the AI all the wisdom he could think of. He put his papers that he had written and things into AI with the idea that his children, after he passed away, could say, "Hey, Dad, I got this dilemma. What should I do?" And Dad's wisdom would come out of the AI. So I'd like you to kind of break that out and say what those things are, and then tell me what you think of that particular usage.
That is in the context of generative AI, where the output is a function of the prompts and the input that you are providing to the AI model that then goes and works on the large language model or the data that is being fed into it. So in your illustration, the context is all the knowledge that the dad feeds into the system, with the hope that if the knowledge and the wisdom of the last 50, 60, 70 years of his life, and the model then works on that data, they will be able to respond to his kids based on the input that the kids ask the large language data set. So it's very important that the data on which it operates is of high quality, is reliable, is trustworthy, is secure, because that in turn will determine the output, right? So, there have been some malpractices and lawsuits that have happened because a patient had asked a chatbot in a healthcare organization about an issue they were having with their health. And then they were given a particular response, which then they went and took verbatim and implemented. And that caused a lot of discomfort to the individual. Now, this particular individual is now suing the company for fraudulent and incorrect information. Okay, so is the promise to help there? Yes, but there have to be disclaimers, and and I'm sure there were, but the user didn't put as much information on that as they should have, and they actually went and implemented that. If you think about this, you've got, it's a value chain, right? You got raw data, and then there are lots of different things that happen, and then that eventually gives you insight and intelligence, which then you act upon and you take action, and that gives you the result. So in this whole value chain, if there's a break, it can negatively impact you. So that's a great question. Okay. Having said that, I'm very excited about the opportunity that AI has in the form of content creation, in the form of mass personalization, okay, in the form of helping increase productivity and give you new insights. And that's where we have taken that and implemented it in MaximizeU. Okay, so I'd like to just spend a couple of minutes to talk to you all a little about that. And some of the exciting avenues of how humans can utilize AI to transform. I'm of the firm opinion that a significant source of competitive advantage today is not the technology, it's not capital, it's not land, it's human talent. Because everything else can be copied and replicated, but the human involvement cannot. So the whole premise behind MaximizeU.life is to maximize human potential and to transform into becoming a better person. Not comparing yourself with somebody else, but comparing yourself with who you were, a month ago or a year ago. And how can you continue to grow and develop and become a better human being? Whatever your yardstick of success looks like. So what we did is we leveraged AI to eliminate the traditional barriers to improvement. And what are those traditional barriers? Well, one is, if I want to improve in a particular area, who are the experts in that area? How do I find those experts? How do I interact with those experts in a way that is not cost prohibitive? How do I engage with other people who are on my journey? How do I eliminate cost from the equation? And how can I do this on my terms and whenever I want, on the device that I want, without having to physically go and attend a session in a particular classroom? So there are many of those traditional barriers to improvement, which we have got rid of by leveraging AI with MaximizeU.life. So now today, what we cannot do is to give you the desire to want to improve and to want to become better. That has to be in you. But once you have that desire, we've created the platform which can enable you to fulfill that desire. So what we've done is we've identified folks that are experts in all different areas, and we've modified and democratized their content and their expertise in a single platform, which makes it very easy for people to utilize that knowledge and to absorb that knowledge and to implement that knowledge and to work on that knowledge, and then to actually be able to interact with people in a virtual setting like what we're doing today, right? We would not have been able to do this 15 years ago if we didn't have Zoom and we didn't have Teams and we didn't have a platform where we can communicate and collaborate irrespective of what part of the world you're sitting in, right? So very exciting avenues. Not only that, each person has their own growth path. My growth path may be very different to yours. And how can you help me on my growth path? And so that's where we are leveraging AI models to help you do that, based on the experience and the growth trajectory of other people that started from where you are and ended where you want to go. So very exciting things. And again, this is just the beginning. We don't have all the answers. There are many unknowns, but we're going to get there. We're going to figure it out. just like we did with other technologies that came before this. So exciting times. Any questions for me?
I do have another question. Please share or request, share how MaximizeU is supporting our Edgewalker community and what the opportunities are, because many of the community members are coaches, consultants, trainers. So what are the opportunities they have to work with MaximizeU?
Great question. So what we have done with MaximizeU is we have brought producers and consumers together. So what do I mean by that? The consumer is somebody that would like to consume the knowledge and act upon it. The producer is the one that has the knowledge. So if you are a subject matter expert in an area that is of use to others, you can leverage MaximizeU to monetize your expertise. And we will help you convert your expertise into offerings, which can then be purchased by the consumer, and you generate a revenue stream for yourself, and you make your expertise far more widely available across the globe to anybody that wants it. So it's a great opportunity for you to monetize your content, your expertise, your knowledge, and make it far more widely available than it was possible previously. Right? So again, that's because of the technology and because we have that platform that now you can do that. Earlier on, if I was a great baker of bread, right? Who would I sell the bread to? Well, maybe my friends in my neighborhood or maybe the folks in my community. But now, anybody from anywhere in the world, if they want my bread, they can go and they can access and take my bread through my website, and I can ship it globally and all of that. So we are doing the same thing for knowledge and expertise through online courses, through coaching, through sessions, through videos, through podcasts, etc., etc. So hopefully, Judy, I answered that question. And if anybody is interested in making their knowledge available to others to benefit from and to gain from, while generating revenue for yourself, please reach out to me, reach out to Judy. I'll put my contact information in the chat box. It's coach@maximizeu.life. I'll also put in my cell phone number. I'm based out of Austin, Texas, but I do travel quite a bit. And if you reach out, I will be happy to work with you. And that's what we've done with the Edgewalker program. So in the past, Judy, why don't you talk a little about that as to how we are making it more efficient by putting it on MaximizeU?
Great, thank you. I think there's a couple of benefits. Well, first of all, what we're doing with MaximizeU is taking all of the Edgewalker certification programs and our various kinds of trainings and non-retreat offerings, including coaching, and we're partnering with MaximizeU for MaximizeU to offer this to a much broader audience than we can reach. And so we are taking what would normally have been online, like we might use a Zoom class approach of lecturing certain material with PowerPoints to a live group of people who called in. And instead of doing that, we've put everything on video, and we're creating a whole platform with various resources, videos, handouts, reference to articles, all these different kinds of resources, so that most of the program can be self-managed by the learner. with then some live meetings in between. And that's one of their ways of offering things, is this blended approach of some material that's self-learning and some material that's in group learning situation. And we have not taken any programs yet that are all self-learning, where somebody can pace themselves and go through, but that's one of the things that you offer. And then you also offer supporting totally live programs as well. So that's what we're in the process of doing. And in the Edgewalker Academy, all the people who offer those programs have gone through Edgewalker certification programs. But you work outside of the Edgewalker Academy just much more broadly. We're
Yeah.
trying to focus in a branded kind of way. So you've white labeled us that allows us for specifics for people who want to learn more about Edgewalkers. So it's just very flexible. People can be in the academy or they're outside of the academy in the overall MaximizeU. Many, many options.
Yes, thank you, Judy. And you know, it's it's exciting, right? Because now we can very quickly translate programs from English to other languages. We recently got back from China, and we're converting the courses into Mandarin and Cantonese. We are very quickly converting text into speech and vice versa. And there is software and AI models out there that can easily do that. So the goal is to make your knowledge and content available on a global scale, right? And a lot of other additional folks and businesses and organizations can benefit from that if done in the correct way. Yes, Larry.
So I just want to share a perspective. I'll call it that. Before I do, though, I appreciate very much your insights and your thoughts, and this notion that you're sharing about global reach, because I think global reach is something that we've seen with the internet in general, opening up the world, whether it be with our bread or our consulting services, that we can reach a much broader audience. I think that's really important. I would add to that, as we can expand our reach, so too can others. And so I'm not sure myself whether that's how that plays out in terms of net competitiveness, because we can reach broader, but then we also have more competition. But I want to speak to one point real briefly, because I think it's really important. And I think it's at the heart of AI as I take it in, which is the word efficiency. A lot of what is driving AI, and I've heard it several times today, is the word efficiency drives a lot of AI because it can make many things more efficient, no question. I think where I'm struggling a little bit is the linkage between efficiency, or I think you use the words maximize productivity, linking those with becoming a better person or even a better business. And I think some of the alternative perspective I'd like to get out there is that efficiency, I think it's helpful that we question whether efficiency is the sole or the most important driver in the betterment and transformation of humanity. I think there may be other things that are as important. I did a research project in the fall of last year where I interviewed 74 artists across disciplines. And I noticed someone in here in their background had a violin. So my eye went to that. But in the arts are not there it is. The arts are not necessarily driven by efficiency. The arts are driven by aesthetic and an internal something that happens emotionally and heart-based inside. And I think businesses sometimes can have this too. And so I would just like to offer a little bit of alternative perspective to efficiency or productivity as being the sole driver and an impulse, or not impulse, but impetus to betterment.
Absolutely. Great point. Great point, Larry. And, you know, it's by no means the sole driver, and it shouldn't, because if it becomes the sole driver, then everybody, including all of us, is in trouble. It's one of the drivers. And by no means should it become the primary objective, because then, you know, you lose out on all the other things. In fact, there was a happiness survey done, and, you know, some of the poorest countries had the happiest people. So obviously, happiness and overall quality of life is not purely driven by efficiency and productivity and gross domestic product and personal income, et cetera, et cetera. So there are many other factors that go into it. You know, I'm not at all making a point that, you know, we should ignore the other aspects that are very critical to leading a balanced, well-rounded, and impactful life. Sometimes productivity is the easiest way to start, and it's the simplest form of it's low-hanging fruit for an organization. Okay, I'll give you an example. If you're working in a lawyer's office and there's an individual that is transcribing all the legal documents to put it into a data repository, which can then be stored and kept on file for 7 years for compliance purposes, that use case is apt for AI to get involved with and to quickly translate all of that, leveraging compute power, and to put it into a database where it can be easily searched and codified and classified for compliance purposes. So sometimes the productivity gain becomes a simple and obvious place to target AI first. Now, what happens to that person that was doing that job? Hopefully, it frees up that person to acquire more value-added skills to maybe work on that output instead of creating that output. So there's a difference between, you know, I talk to a lot of data scientists and a lot of business analysts at companies, and 70% of the time, they're trying to create the data set. If you spend so much of your time just creating the data, when do you actually work on the data? And when you gather the insights and the intelligence? And so that's the difference, right? How can we make people spend their time? Because time is a very valuable ingredient. We have limited time. So what can we do to make sure that we're spending our time appropriately, efficiently, effectively with the people we care about, on the things we are concerned about? And what can we do to make sure that we are getting the result that we want? So that's a great point, Larry, that you made, and I am in complete agreement with that. I also want to give you a small example, right? My son, he just turned 15 and we got him a guitar because he wanted to play the guitar. And, back in the day when, I wanted to learn how to play a guitar, or my wife wanted to learn how to play a guitar, we would have to go and get lessons from somebody in the neighborhood that would teach us how to do that. Well, now he doesn't need that. He's got an AI application on his smartphone, which specifically shows him how to play the guitar, starting from where he is and gradually making it more complex based on his ability and his aptitude. And he's doing a fine job. Now, Judy, he doesn't play as well as you do, but it has helped him pick it up in a way that he is comfortable with, and he doesn't have to go and visit somebody, and he can do it at 2 o'clock in the morning when he wants to without disrupting or disturbing anybody else, because we do hear him playing and strumming the strings a little, but that's a different story. So just to give you an example that now today he can do that, whereas in the past he wasn't able to, right? Another difference between a chef and a cook, right? A chef is leveraging AI to create new recipes that were not possible before, and to combine foods and ingredients that didn't exist before to create an experience that is amazing for the consumer.
Your example of the guitar with your son may not work out as well if he starts playing the drums.
True. Which is why when he said, "Dad, I want a guitar," we said, "Okay, we'll get you a guitar." That's a great point.
I think we're going to need to wrap up here. What a fascinating discussion and exploration. And, in many ways, we're talking about what are the levels of consciousness that we have as humans when we are asking these questions about using tools, because tools by themselves are neutral. They're neither good nor bad. It's what happens in the hands of various people and what their intentions are and what their, as Larry said, what their heart is. And so Sal, you've really shown us how important it is to be holistic in the questions we create and the data that we pull together, to just really be highly conscious about that. And you're also pointing to being systemic about guardrails and thinking the bigger questions about what's best for humanity in using this technology. So you've given us so much to think about, as well as an invitation to work with you for those who feel like they'd like to use AI-supported platforms to get their own work out there. So you're just a wonderful, wonderful offering. So I want to thank you, and I'll give you a minute to close just before we wrap up, but I want to make a couple of announcements, and then I'll have you do whatever you want to say for closing, and then the final closing to say goodbye today will come from Jimena, who is working with Edgewalkers as a consultant and support person, and she'll do our final closing. So upcoming, a month from now, is our next Edgewalker Café that'll be hosted by certified Edgewalker facilitator Patricia Campanile, and her guest speaker will be Sean Harvey, who's someone I've worked with and I've been friends with for a long, long time. He is really looking at transforming toxic masculinity and he works with police departments and the military and the Proud Boys and groups where toxic masculinity has done an awful lot of damage. And so he'll be sharing, I think, I'm not sure yet exactly what he'll be doing, but he also works very much with the soul of the facilitator and creating a community of soulful facilitators. He's been trained both in organizational development and in interfaith ministry. So he'll just bring a lot of interesting Edgewalker types of things to the conversation. The date for that is September 26th at the same time as we've done today, which is 11 a.m. Eastern. Also want to announce, because we have several Edgewalker facilitators on this call, including Sal, and we have our quarterly Edgewalker facilitator meeting on September 21st. And so if you have any topics that you'd like to bring, please contact either Jimena or Kristen for sharing your ideas for topics you'd like to have us address or topics that you'd like to bring in our 90-minute session. So Kristen will kind of juggle all that and make sure that everyone's interests are covered. And Peggy O'Neill, who's on this call today, will be featured talking about Democracy is Us and how this organization that she's created is a highly conscious and Edgewalker kind of organization to help make the world a better place. Peggy, you want to just say one word about that? Because we want people to know about the work that you're doing.
Yeah, so our commitment is to get to the root causes of the crisis that we have in democracy, and knowing that it's up to each of us. So that's our focus, and unique focus, and would love for anybody interested to reach out to me or look at our website, democratization.org. And yes, it's definitely so in alignment with Edgewalker. We have to be Edgewalkers to say we're going to transform democracy, which is what we're up to. So thank you, Judy.
You're welcome. Thank you, Peggy. So Sal, turn it back over to you for any comments you'd like to make to wrap up, and then you can hand it off to Jimena for our closing.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Judy, and the entire Edgewalker community for this opportunity. Greatly appreciate it. I just want to end with, as much of a proponent I am for AI and Gen AI and technology, I am equally and very importantly a continuing proponent of the human involvement and the faith foundation on which everything is built. That will never go away. And without that, we have nothing. So, the emotional intelligence, the spiritual intelligence, the cultural intelligence, and the ability to have empathy and to feel and to understand and to acknowledge and to support and to be compassionate and to be kind, that will never, ever go away. In fact, we need that even more along with technology. So I just wanted to mention that, and thank you for the opportunity, and I'm available if anybody wants to delve deeper, happy to do that. Thank you. I'll pass that on now back to Jimena.
Thank you.
Hello, everyone. First, thank you, Sal, for a thought-provoking discussion, and to all for enriching us with your questions, your comments, your experience with AI. So thank you for this. My mind will still work, be working after. So today, Judy opened the Café with a poem written by a human, by W.B. Yeats. He wrote it a little over 100 years ago. And in line with this talk with using generative AI, I thought I'd share a short poem, well, actually, two really short poems that were generated with AI by an app called Pi. I don't know if you know about it. It mixes ChatGPT with emotional intelligence. So it's a really interesting app. So these are the two short poems. While I reserve judgment of its artistry, and of course, no way compared to W.B. Yeats, I do appreciate the inclusion of how humankind will still be the driving force behind it. Which goes with what Sal said at the very beginning, where intelligence is the core, like it is facilitated through technology, but it's still human, the human intelligence and the heart, and like this, the human element is central to it. So here it goes. Code upon code in binaries hue, computers breathe like me and you. As knowledge flows, a river grand, the future waits, shaped by human hand. And the second one, connections forged, a web of light, digital worlds take shape so bright. And in this dance where cyberspace thrives, humanity's essence forever drives. So this is a result of a little play, playing with AI. And with that, thank you all for joining us, and we'll see you in the next cafe. Bye, everyone.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.
And Sal, can you stay on just a minute?